Hey, little man!
Oh, Lumen! What's going on, everyone? Nick here, Team YGO, over here with Samuel Helzik, bringing you another Amaryllis-related video.
Hell
But
yeah.
it's going to be a matchup spread video. But before we jump right into it, we are at 143 subscribers. Again, thank you so much for all the love so far. We're really climbing our way over to 250 subs. So we do have a giveaway that we decided for the 250 subscriber. And what else would it
What
be than a
else?
foreign Amaryllis? So you see that Amaryllis that's right on Sam's screen. You are going to be, when we hit 250 subscribers, the lucky winner will receive one of those. Please continue to like, comment, and subscribe. We'll go over more details later as to how to best obtain a free copy, because listen, we know those things are freaking expensive, man. And if you can play the best deck on a budget, you know you're going to be winning overall. So please continue to subscribe and like and comment. And I know I'm going to give you some time to subscribe. I'll wait. All right, so you go to the bottom of the screen there, and then you hit the subscribe button, and then there's also the notification. You can click that too. Okay, cool. You already did that. Great. Now, let's go for it, Sam.
And now, Nick, look, I'm already subscribed to Little Man YGO on my YouTube channel. But
Already a subscriber. He was actually like the 7th or 8th subscriber. Sam, a pioneer. It's like Lewis and Clark. My goodness.
but also, Nick, not only do we have one Amaryllis, we have two Amaryllises. Two. So there's going to be two lucky winners.
Oh my.
We'll have one person win this one and one person winning this one. They are LP French copies, first ed. In case anyone was wondering, they got a little edge wear, but they still do the same thing as your near mint copies. And someone will have this for free.
Copies. That's all
That's
that
right.
matters. You can't see those $5 Japanese copies that you could only play at your locals and then be like, all right, I can't play these anymore because we're going to Ultimate Time Wizard events. But you know, what are you gonna do? What are you going to do? All right, let's head over to the tier list, Sam. Let's go over to it. Go for it. What are we doing here, Sam?
We have five categories. We have all the matchups down here. What we're going to do is we're going to rate all of them Amaryllis matchups based on the bye. Basically, you get matched up against this deck, you have a bye into the next round. A favorable matchup, a 50-50 matchup, kind of like a skill matchup. Not favorable, kind of need to work pretty hard, and then borderline unwinnable. Might as well just scoop up your cards.
Fair enough. All right, cool. So we're gonna go by section here. Shout out to the tier maker for already having all this stuff already in here, because
very convenient.
I was not uploading anything. Absolutely not. Okay.
Right.
So let's go over to where that Shura is over there. We're gonna do Blackwings first. Blackwings.
Blackwings. Where do you think Blackwings are?
I think that they're closer to the bottom of not favorable. Like the bottom of not favorable, if we could do that. So obviously we'll add more, and then we could fix that and whatever. But it's not a super unwinnable matchup. At least I think so. I think like everyone plays against it and they get bodied really hard by it. But I think that with proper side deck, and part of it is a little bit of luck too. Like if they just open like Black Whirlwind and like strong normal summon and you have no way to stop it, there's a lot of decks that just can't even deal with that to begin with, right? So Titanial is a house against certain cards within that matchup as well, assuming that they don't have like Kulut or anything, but like Kulut, Blizzard, and like Black Whirlwind are like the big cards in that matchup. So I would say that it's on like towards the bottom of not favorable, because like it's not like an unwinnable matchup, but it's definitely a matchup that like you have to play a ton.
Yeah.
Just kind of like understand. Like I think most of it is just like sticking a Mark of the Rose, like a single Mark of the Rose on a Sirocco, and just like using that and then like having that carry you to victory. I've definitely done that a ton before. But Sam, you've also played
so
quite some time, so let's hear your thoughts.
So all the things you just said are going to be for any matchup, right? It's like, Black Whirlwind, Shura, Kulut, they're going to have any matchup is going to have to face those problems. The thing that we have to face that I think is just particularly hard is, we have tokens and Amaryllis, all of which come in 0 defense. We play Rykos, which is 100 defense, and even if you go first and you get like you hit an armor, you mill an Amaryllis, and you have a plant engrave, and turn 1 you get an Amaryllis on the field. They can just go Bora, pump that Sirocco, Bora, pump that, and hit you for 37 direct. And it's just like, holy shit, all of a sudden you're on like a 1-turn clock. Like, they could just kill you next turn out of nowhere. And even with you, like, against other matchups where you have, your tokens and your Amaryllis kind of act as a defense, like a defensive mechanism, they just punch right through that. And it's just, sometimes it's just like, I was sitting there like, I was like, all right, this is hard. And so I literally took my Blackwing deck and I took my Amaryllis deck, I put them next to each other, and I started play testing myself. I'm like, how the hell do I do this? And sometimes it's just, you can't win. It's just like, they'll just pump through your tokens, and it's hard. But I think we've both talked about some adaptations to the side deck specifically for that. One thing I did. What have you done?
I think Magic Cylinder is like a clear win against this deck. Like, I mean, they're gonna pump their thing up to like get the maximum damage over your 0 defense monsters. So like, if you can take away half their life points by just flipping 1 card, of course that's amazing.
That's amazing.
Like, Dust Tornadoes are another big card in that matchup. Even like putting Sirocco's in your side deck is also like not a bad idea against this matchup either. I think of Bottomless also being a good one. Deep Prison's another card worth considering also. Like, just basic staples that like make this matchup a little bit more bearable. I think the Volcanic counter version of Amaryllis actually suffers harder against Blackwings.
That's right.
Because like, the reality of it is like, once you get like lose 2,000 life points and then you're at like 6,000 and whatnot, you're just like begging to get pumped over for game, and those counters in the graveyard are just not gonna be enough for you to like survive at all, unless you have like multiple counters, of course. But like, the reality of like that happening very early on in the game is like very, very slim, because of how aggressive and how strong that comes out first. So like, that's why, you could adapt to that in that regard, but like, that's why this deck's on the bottom of unfavorable.
I can't move it over. I can put other things in front of it, but for now it's right there. We'll move it down as other decks come in. One thing I've put in my side deck that is relatively untested, I haven't actually played up against any Blackwings since I have done this, but is I put a Gale in my side deck and then put an Armor Master in my extra deck. I took out Queen of Thorns. That card is it's not coming up in the relevant situations that we wanted to. So I took that out, put in an Armor Master, with the theory being you could Mark of the Rose, special summon Gale, make an Armor Master. If you Mark the Rose, any one of their level 4s, you can make an Armor Master with it. And you could do that under Hidden Armory because you're a special summoning Gale. So relatively untested, but I'd like to see if that comes up and wins me a game.
Agree with that. Okay.
All right, let's move on to Hero Beat, our channel's new favorite desk, the buy. You think it's up here?
The deck's a buy.
All right.
Deck's a buy.
Tell me why you think it's a buy.
Okay, so obviously they have Honest in that deck, right? Which is like the biggest thing, and they can make like absolute 0, but like, those Gem Sparks are not really doing anything. They summoned 1900 vanillas. They're summoning Gemini elves, right? Like, that's what they're summoning, really. They're not like really doing a whole ton within there. Their resource engine is just looping. Raiko's Lila's deal with back row so well.
Yes.
I think too, like, your deck is just so naturally geared to having like Titania just plop on the board and just end the game right then and there. It just that deck cannot deal with monsters that are bigger than the monsters that are in the main deck itself, unless like they already have their way halfway to like if have their like halfway to absolute 0. And this is including like the Diva Hero Beat versions. And the cool thing about the Diva Hero Beat versions is that like, they can make Catastor, but you just side in Cyber Dragons, and Cyber Dragon's great against that matchup anyway. Attack over like those Aliases or those Stratoses or whatever, and then also like, that they're making Catastor 9 times out of 10, so you're just Chimera teching those Catastors like all the time. So that's like another good side deck card against that are like, like the counter sides against like what they're already trying to do anyway. I don't find myself siding too many cards against this deck. I probably side like 1 or 2 cards in versus out, and that's probably just a side out like, Trap Dushu, which is a dog water card against this deck. But outside of that, like, this deck is just not like it just can't. It's so, I played against the Hero Beat matchup like countless times. It just feels free every single time I play it. But like, Sam, let's hear your thoughts.
My thoughts are, all right, so if I mean, there's the skill drain version with like the skyscraper has kind of fallen out of the meta. Like we haven't really seen that.
Yeah,
It's
no
been
Scott.
more Diva Hero Beat. The skill drain skyscraper version of the deck, I think is definitely a buy. I think I would put this more in a favorable matchup, only because what you did say about Diva into Catastor. Catastor is just such a naturally good out for Titanial. The deck that you played at Nats doesn't play D Prison, like so. Just game one. If you're talking about game one, I think it's just the fact that they have access so easily to Catastor, which is an out to your Titanial, and then they can start like I think a good hero beat player would recognize when to gem spark, and like I guess our game plan would be try to set the Raikos, set some of the Lilas, pop their back rows before you start doing all of your Amaryllis plays to like control their back row before you start pushing. But I feel like game one just having the disadvantage of Catastor puts it into like you could side into Cyber Dragon.
Right.
But are you always going to have the Cyber Dragon for the Catastor? Yeah, sometimes you will, sometimes you won't, which makes me feel like it's more of a favorable matchup. And that's my thought, but you are the master, so maybe putting it in the buy. If you're talking about peak Amaryllis gameplay versus peak Hero Beat gameplay, maybe the buy is the right place for it.
Right. I mean, like, I just don't think like Catastor is like a generally like a very hard card to deal with in general. You know what I mean? Like, it's I don't feel like it's like you could like Mark of the Rose and take it, or you could just Wing Blast it back, or there's like a myriad of other things that you could just kind of like do within there. But overall, like I just feel like that it's definitely something where, like it's definitely something that I think is like generally like it's such an easy matchup. Like even if they go into Catastor, it's like, okay, who cares? Like I have ways to out. It's not like Catastor's not an outable card, if that makes sense. But yeah, that's just my general feeling. I just feel like I win against this every single time I get paired against it.
All right, sounds good. All right, so moving on to the next deck, we got Frogs, our little friend Subsito, which is a $45 rare. Konami, if you find yourself watching this video, reprint this card. Holy crap!
Yeah,
I mean,
really bad at $45, but that deck is the ultra buy.
If there's a category above the buy, it's yeah. I mean, the deck just if you could establish Titanial and one other negate, or even it's just over. They can't do anything.
Even when they like summon 0 and crash into your thing, you usually have a follow up to get another Titanial into the field, and that's the craziest.
Yeah, that's the craziest thing.
It's like even all variants are just like so like, oh my god, they're so free. I think like the reason why I did so well at Nats is because of bracket luck, where I played against 6 of these things, right? I played against 6 of these, and every time I saw Swap Drop come down, I'm like, oh my god,
this is free.
I won another match. It's crazy. You know? It's the whole deck is based off targeting. Like 0, of course, is a really good card against Amaryllis, and I think the Hero Frog deck is like the best frog, like Monarch kind of deck that you could be playing. But like, there's nothing else to say. Like this deck just feels so free. Deck targets the Rises, the Caiuses. Obviously, if you don't have like Titanial, it could be like a little harder.
Right.
And if you like have a slow start, they could really take advantage of that. But like, if you open just like a normal hand, like the normal everyday hand that this deck like plays, you're not. You should not be losing to this deck.
So,
at least I think so.
So I have a replay. I don't have the replay here with me, but I recently played again on DB. I was supposed to be playing a match, and the guy was playing Frogs, and I didn't see Lone Fire. I didn't see Titanial. I didn't like anything in my opening hand, and so recognizing that your win condition is establishing a Titanial, and if you can establish that Titanial and protect it, or have Titanial and a negate on the board, there's absolutely nothing they can do. So I drew into Foolish Burial, and recognizing that, I actually Foolished the Lone Fire and was able to Mark of the Rose, banish the Lone Fire, and DDR back the Lone Fire, just to get the Lone Fires rolling into the graveyard, tributing into a Titanial. And I forget exactly what happened, but I eventually ended with Titanial, a Dandelion, and an Amaryllis. And the guy went like Treeborn Frog standby phase, enemy controller, negate, right? And then enemy controller again, negate. And then brain control, negate. and then he went Caius, negate, and then he scooped. He was like trying to burn through everything, and like it was supposed to be a match, and he just quit out right there. And I was just like,
yeah,
sorry, man, just get
It
fucked.
happens a lot where
Yeah.
like, they try to throw as many like, and at that point, even if they get rid of your Titanium, they burn like 2 or 3 or 4, sometimes even 4 cards against you, and it's
Right.
like, all right, you burned 4 cards, and I still have like 4 cards in my hand, and you're at 1, and it's just like so over from that. But
Yeah.
like, yeah, there's not much more to say about.
There's not
this.
much more. Side decking, like that would be a deck you sign the feed comedian package against, and it's just like it just gets even better post board. It's yeah. All right, we can move on. This would be Diva Hero.
Diva Hero. We put this one in 50-50.
I agree.
For sure.
I agree.
This is like it's crazy because like obviously you have Diva that floats right into Catastor.
Mm-hmm.
You have Zero, which is like a House of a Monster. You have access to the 8-star synchro pool, which could be like Thought Ruler or anything like that. And the deck it's like a sack deck in the sense that like they top deck Miracle Fusion sometimes, and you're just like, God damn it,
Yeah.
But there are like.
Oh, Nick, you cut out.
All right, cool. So, I mean, it's your Diva deck. I mean, like it's one of those things where like I've been playing Tragodia for a little bit now, just for spoilers for everybody, and the only reason being is because we could chuck Amaryllis and Titanials out of the hand to steal their zeros.
Yeah.
And that's really it.
Mm-hmm.
It does help out a lot with that matchup per se, but it could really go in your favor or their favor depending on how well you draw or how well they draw. So
And
that's why I'm like
it's also you can also think of this 50-50 category as a skill matchup. Like there's a lot of bad Diva Hero players. I feel like a lot of people see Diva Hero doing well. They see like a true hero playing Diva Hero, and they see like how well he does, and they pick up the deck. And a lot of people are just like, this deck sucks because they don't understand it. But actually, recently on Friday, you and I played a game in tournament where I was playing Diva Hero and you were playing Amaryllis, and things happened that game. We don't have to talk about it. We have to relive the situations, but let's just say Deck Devastation Virus was involved in those interactions. And sometimes like 50-50, you could be the better player, but they deck dev you for 4 cards in hand. I'm just saying that happens.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
So that's definitely, I think, a 50-50 for sure. Top of the 50-50 category.
That's it.
All
right, cool.
Moving on. We got a lot of decks to get through. Zombies. I know where I would put this.
I put this towards favorable.
Definitely. Definitely a favorable matchup.
I think that this is like, the deck is so slow and like it requires you to just beat over their like recruiters and their like stuff and whatever. But anyway, if you're beating over their recruiters, it's like they cannot. That means you're ahead, right? Like if you're starting to be aggressive and attack over with them. But the deck feels like there's a lot of like one piece or one off or one. It feels like just like a generally. It's consistent. The deck's consistent. I'm just one of those people who don't understand how this deck wins.
Yes.
Honestly, like I think I play it a lot. It does well in like any good pilot who uses it, but like I find myself just like, well, Revive King is a hell of a card too. Like,
I was gonna bring up Revive King.
Yeah, that's the one that I think that like out of everything in the matchup, that's like very like important. And obviously, if they establish Bryonac early and they could have like and they put you on 2 turns and you have a slow start, then they could kill you there.
Yes.
But outside of that, like I think this matchup is like very, very bearable. Like I think it's beyond bearable. Like I do think more often than not, like I mean, like I play against zombies at locals all the time, and I just feel like it's just so like it's free.
Yeah.
Like if I play it online, it's free. I see it and I'm just like I side very minimally for it, but that's just kind of like my general thoughts. But we'd love to hear what you have to say.
So whenever I played against this deck a lot. We have a couple of zombie players at our locals, so it's just a matchup that I'm constantly playing against, and it's like. Whenever I see it, I could just like take a breath, because if I have a slow start, I know that in order for them to get started, they need to set recruiters. So like their deck always starts slow. So if we match our slow start with their slow start, I feel like we will always come up on top. Whereas we can also have like a good start where we have those trade-in hands or where you just like turbo through a couple things, and in those situations I feel like it's just a blowout. Revive King is a card that we have to consider. It hitting over Amaryllis's, Dandelions, Raikos, and just kind of shutting off some of our engine just by having that card on board is definitely, that's the card why I wouldn't consider a buy. But maybe just our zombie players are the ones I have been playing against are maybe not that good, and they just don't like make Revive King. They'll make a Brio, but we have Titanials for Brios, and it's just like I feel very safe whenever I play against this deck. I've never lost with Amaryllis against zombies in tournament, and a card that I know you kind of you like recognize it is a viable card in one of your videos, and a card that I keep it in my side deck, and I always side against zombies is Final Attack Orders. You flip Final Attack Orders against zombies, and it's just like all of a sudden you're pushing through all the recruiters, hitting them, like, because Final Attack Orders, you attack into the recruiter, it flips up into attack position, and you hit them for a ton of damage, and like they just like can't come back from that just constant onslaught of damage. You bring back your Amaryllis in attack position. It's like they set a Goblin Zombie, and they like you attack into it, and yeah, they'll get their search, but they also take like a free 1100 and then 28 from Amaryllis, and all of a sudden you're ahead of the game, and it's just, it feels so good, and I will always keep that card in my side deck. I shouldn't say always, but I really like that card, especially in zombies.
Right.
So.
Yeah. Definitely with you on that one for sure.
Okay.
That definitely makes a lot of. I can see Final Attack Order just like because they plop right into Spirit Reaper, because they always plop.
They always plop into Spirit Reaper. Yeah.
And then you put Final Attack Orders, and it's like a 300 dude that's an attack mode, and you're like, all right.
Yeah, it plays around their gores and everything. Yes, I love that card.
Ignorant.
All right, let's move on to Vayu Turbo.
This is favorable, right?
Okay.
So the reason why it's not a buy is because a lot more of those Vayu Turbo decks are main decking Royal Oppression. I think that when I was at Nationals, all the Vayu Turbo decks that I played against either main decked one or none at all. So there's a lot of targeting back row in that deck between Deep Prisons and occasional Compulses, like Caius is being a big targeter. The Raikos being a big targeter too. Their armed wings are 2300 attack, which is puny, so like you don't even care half the time. They don't play Kulu. It's like they stripped all of like the good Blackwing cards out of the deck and just like played like some wackiness or whatever. But like I think that like what really like puts this deck not into the buy category is Royal Oppression, and this deck plays Royal Oppression better than any other deck in the format.
That's right.
Like hands down. It's not even close. Because there's some matches that I've lost against Vayu Turbo, and the only reason why I lost is because they saw Royal Oppression early and I got a slow start.
Right.
Which makes it a lot more towards like the, but like honestly, outside of that, if you're like going first, and they're just like sometimes you have a board set up and they're just like setting monsters, and you're like, dude, what are you doing? And then you beat them so quickly afterwards. But yeah, the at Nationals especially, like no one was playing Oppression at that time, so that's why I felt the matchup was very free. But because a lot of Vayu Turbo players, I kind of realized that like their Royal Oppression is like what makes them play their game almost unfairly in relation to the rest of the format. So that's just kind of my general thoughts on it. But like, what over here would you have?
No, those are pretty much what I feel like. The deck is surprisingly like very skill oriented. Like there's like people think like the concept of the deck is very simple, right? You're milling and you're turboing into the Vayu and the Sirocco to get out your synchros. But there's a lot of small interactions about this deck that make it very hard to pilot. And I think a better Vayu Turbo player against maybe an amateur Amaryllis player maybe makes the deck more into a 50-50. But if you're talking like the peak gameplay versus peak gameplay, like you got your best possible scenarios, I think it definitely leans more towards favorable. Yeah,
I agree with that.
So yeah. Absolutely. All right, let's move on. The fact that this is Christia and this is a Shiny Angel makes me think this is Christia Sworn, yeah?
Christia Sworn, and then I put this closer to the favorable.
Okay.
Right? So like I put this towards favorable.
Would you put it more, now that we have 2 in this category, would you put it to the front or to the back of favorable?
Back of favorable.
Okay.
Because the casino decks in this format are all graveyard reliant, right?
Okay.
So like, you could out casino them when you have Fiend Comedian and they mill their whole deck. I know, Sam, you and I have definitely played a match where
there's been some words exchanged between the two of us when you flipped when you first discovered Fiend Comedian. I think the first local we went to, when it was the first card in your side deck, like the first time in your side deck playing the deck, I was on Christia Sworn at the time, and I had some words for you. You banished like 20 cards from my graveyard. That's insane.
Yeah, it's like, and like, you know, when it comes, I never felt that this deck was particularly strong to begin with. Like, sometimes you're able to like draw the nutty hand and then drop JD Christia, and then the game is over after that, which is the same against any other deck that would suffer in that matchup. I think every deck would suffer within that clause if they set up that good, but the deck lacks speed in the beginning of the game. It also like lacks like a defensive mechanism outside of like Honest or Herald of Orange Light, and you kind of don't really care about those cards either. If you could well manage like their Christias, and obviously their Christias could bump into your Titanials, and then they get Christia to the top of their deck. But I think at those points, like, you just need to be conscious of their fairy count within their graveyard more often than us going game 1. And then game 2, you can just slide in like counter Comedian package, just deals with this deck immediately. So like, it's, I don't know. It's the reason why it's not is not in like the buy tier is because like the deck could its way into victory, but that's just generally my feelings about this deck. But what do you feel, Sam?
Well, as you know, I have a max rarity lightsworn Christia Sworn deck that I had to take apart. So unfortunately, I think the deck has just fallen out of the meta. Like, there was the one event that it topped, and everyone went on to that one list. It had the double beckoning lights and all that stuff, and since then, like, I think that was a meta call, that deck. Like, it did well because of that video or that event, and the deck has just fallen out of favor. Whenever I played Christia Sworn against you, I just felt like there's just no hope. I just could not win. Even there were games where I went charge, recharge, like drop, and you would still win the game. And I'm like, am I bad? Like, how do I lose when I go charge, recharge? And I'm just like, I just, like you said, like a good player will know how to play around the fairy count, and of course, just the nature of Lightsworns, there will be games that they just automatically win, and there's just absolutely nothing you can do. They milled the nuts, they did the nuts, but even in a more fair, like you said, a casino deck, in a more like, you know, they didn't do that. I think you have the favorable matchup.
Right, I think so. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. All right.
Okay. Next.
Moving on, this Trap Dragon deck. Oh, I know you have some feelings about this deck.
So, if Future Fusion was like did not exist in this format,
well, then this wouldn't even be on this tier list.
It would not even be on the tier list, right? Sorry. Exactly. So no, that's okay. But this one's tough.
This one's tough. So let's give this scenario where.
Oh, like, okay. So here's like, I think the area in the game where you like start getting like hurt really hard. Well, okay, so I put this in favorable, and the only reason why I put it in favorable is because your whole deck is full of brain control and snatch steal cards. So when they go like double red med, you just 2-for-1 them right there, and that happens a lot, like a lot. The deck plays a lot of back row. The deck is also a little slow too until it sees future. The deck is only good until it sees future fusion. So it's like, even if it's a Trap Dragon deck, I still find it into like a Casino X kind of deck. Obviously, Sam, you've played this deck a little bit more than I've played against it. So like, but but even if they have the DD Warrior Ladies in their main deck, I'm just like, what? And then oh my god! And then you wouldn't destroy a DD Warrior Lady and goes to the graveyard. You don't have to worry about Totem Dragon ever again. It's nice in that regard, but like,
so
there are definitely moments where I feel like it's at the bottom of favorable, just because of like the power of Future Fusion, and sometimes the ceiling of monsters that they have are larger than the ceilings of the monsters that you have. But like, this is definitely a matchup where like, if you side deck volcanic counters, not even the Fiend Comedians, but if you side deck the volcanic counters, then like you can do a serious amount of damage with this. And also too, a lot of them are dropping Prime Material Dragon. I think like when Prime Material Dragon was a very popular card, I would say this was more a 50-50 matchup, but because they dropped that card, I think it's a little bit more to the bottom of favorable. But we'll love to hear what you have to say.
So this is the deck I played at Nats, and believe it or not, we never play tested the matchup, even though I played Dragons at Nats and you played Amaryllis at Nats. Up until like a day before Nats, you were playing Rescue Cat. Good God, thank God. Yeah, good thing you didn't play that. But I don't think we've ever actually played this matchup together. But so I've never actually done this matchup from the Dragon player's perspective. But I would say, just from my thing, I would think it would be like towards the top of 50-50, only because the power of Future Fusion, and because of they basically made 4 copies of DD Warrior Lady, and that is a natural out to Titanial. It banishes your Amaryllises. Plus they're playing bottomless. They play a lot of back row, and so if you get to destroy their DD Warrior Ladies, it turns off Totem Dragon. But you and I have discussed before in the past that Totem Dragon isn't like why lock yourself into dragons for Totem Dragon? And I think other dragon decks have started to adapt that, and they play their Raikos and they cut the whole Totem Dragon engine. But if you're going based on
if they go down that direction, it's like it feels like the deck is a lot more winnable, because like the Mass Dragons at least feel like they could not let you die, which is kind of nice. But when you play the more targeting cards the deck plays, then the easier the Magic gets. But we could put it towards the top of 50-50.
I think it's towards the top of 50-50, only because of what I said, the power of Future Fusion and the 4 main deck copies of DD Warrior Lady, and DD Warrior Lady being a pretty good out to our wing condition, which is Titanial and Amaryllis. So that's why I would put it here. And good dragon players. This is we're talking good dragon players here. And again, another deck that has a very simple concept that you need to be at your peak gameplay in order to make this deck do what it does well. Right. All right.
Fair enough. Yeah,
moving on. The supervised Gemini, Gigaplant, all that stuff.
Gemini nonsense. This is 50-50 for sure.
Yeah.
50-50, yeah.
I'll put it right here in the middle of the two.
Yeah. A couple things about this one. So there's a lot of equip spells that are already in the deck, and you can just negate the supervises that are going to get attached to the dudes, which is so good.
Yes, remember Amaryllis, equip spells target, you can negate with Amaryllis.
Yeah, you can negate them. Yeah. It's kind of crazy in that regard. Black Drago is a very good card though. That card, I think if they are able, you could loop into that card. I think that could loop Black Drago 2 or 3 times over, and sometimes it's just tough to deal with. It's a 3,000 attack monster that gets Gigaplant back and then brings back Nettles and then makes another one. So it's really good in that regard. But it sometimes even feels like a glorified hero beat matchup where if they don't open a good combo start, or they don't see Gemini Soldier, then sometimes the deck does feel like the buy. But actually, you know what? Yeah, let's put it in favorable. I definitely, it's in favorable. Let's put it in favorable. Now I'm hearing myself talk. It's favorable.
Okay.
Because I played against this deck a handful of times online. It just didn't feel like it was. Gemini Soldier was a very nice card for what it was, but it's another hero beat deck. You see Gemini Sparks in it. You see the Dark Valkyrie dude is a targeting card. The Evocator is a targeting card. All their quick spells are targeting cards. It works. Ultimate Offering is a great card in that deck, but if they don't, you're just playing as vanillas for the most part sometimes.
It's
Oh, go ahead, Sam.
No, I've never done the matchup, so I couldn't give too much input. I've seen the deck in action, on just watching on channels, and everything you're saying is just kind of true. I was gonna say I would put it more towards the favorable, and as you heard yourself talk, it became that way. I just never thought the deck did anything better than what any of these other decks can do. So it's just, I think it's a good matchup, just only because I've played Amaryllis and I haven't seen this deck do anything too exciting. Yeah.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
That's right. All right.
All right, moving along.
Standard fairies. So fairies with the shining angels, and the Christia,
Oop, I
stuff
didn't
like
put that.
I put that towards. It has a lot of good toys for it, definitely. I would put it towards the bottom of 50-50.
Okay.
So this one has obviously DD Warrior Lady associated
Yes.
with it. Also has the Herald of the Orange Light associated with it. Has Christia associated with it. But you could definitely beat the bad fairy players, because like what they'll do is that like there's a lot of moments where like they just leave DD Warrior and Lady on field with like a recruiter, and then you just like take it and you 2-for-1 them. Like,
right.
And that's a like, and I think that's like one of the skills, one of the biggest skill jumps for Amaryllis, in my opinion, is knowing how to play towards trying to 2-for-1 them with one of your Snatch Steal cards.
Right.
And a lot of it does come from DD Warrior Lady, or knowing how to play around that card, right? It's the deck has like a slow start. Blackwings just keep it a lot out of the meta. Like, I mean, to be fair, like
yes.
flip deck being a tough deck in the game is like fucking over. But like, so like you could definitely play it in like some of the earlier rounds. It's definitely consistent. It's definitely a grind game for sure.
Oh yeah.
But like I think that like, if you plan out your games methodically and you're constantly doing damage turn over turn, you're gonna get to the point where like the Amaryllises are gonna take care of their way. So you definitely have to fight a little bit. But like even if they have like Christia, like you kind of go be like, all right, who cares? Like I'm just gonna attach a Mark of the Rose to it and just like beat you with it, you know, like, and that happens like a lot more often than not. But like, yeah, you could get overrun. They could drop the Christia where you don't have the means to deal with the Christia like effectively, or the means to like take the Christia and not be able to defend yourself either. So like there's that, but I would like to hear your thoughts on that.
Yeah, so there are going to be games where, like, say you summon your Lila turn 1, right? You mill 3 cards, whatever, something comes up, and they summon, and they summon the recruiter, crash, and then they drop Christia, and it's like, well, guess we're going next. You have to, against this deck, you have to, like you were saying, plan out your game so methodically. It is a grind game for sure. You often need to think 2, 3, 4 turns in advance, thinking like, okay, what's my win condition? How am I gonna let my Amaryllis burn for like the last 800? And how am I gonna punch through? How am I gonna use this Mark of the Rose, right? Knowing like sometimes you need to Mark of the Rose, even like against a deck like this, like maybe Mark of the Rosing. They'll get it back on their turn, and if you can play Mark of the Rose knowing that they have no way to get that mark off of your Mark of the Rose target, so that maybe next turn when it swings back to you, then you can do something with it. Like thinking that far in advance is definitely something you need to do against this deck. There's been many times where I've thought like, okay, I can mark here, and I know it'll come back to them, but I know they have no way for it to not come back to me the following turn, and then I'm able to do something with it and convert off of it. Definitely would come up against this deck. Like
it's also, I mean, like if they're also on Book of Moons too, you got to be careful when you do that, because like they could just get the back in the Book of Moon, and the mark will fall off, and they just flip right back over.
Of course,
again. So,
right?
Like,
that's
there's definitely things to like look out for. I think it's like there's a learning curve with this matchup for sure. That's all I need to say about it. You just need to play against it enough to like kind of like know when to do certain things, and it's like tough to describe every scenario to like do that, and if that makes sense. But we can move on to the next one. For sure. We got a few to go.
Oh yeah, we got a whole lot of decks. Pure lightsworns, pure.
Oh, this deck sucks. This deck's a buy. This deck sucks. Like this deck doesn't do anything. I don't
sad.
know what to say.
It's sad. I'm a lightsworn player at heart. I gave up on pure lightsworns a long time ago when it came to Edison.
Yeah.
The deck doesn't have enough toys. It's just there will be games where you could, you'll do your lightsworn things, but in a bracket, in a vacuum, like you're not, like you get to round 3 or 4 of a big tournament, you're just not going to see the deck. It's just not going to.
Especially when you have like an early start first, and they're like have a slow start, and you're doing damage to them so quickly, so fast, and it's like, all right, they drop Judgment Dragon, and they pay 1,000, and they blow up an Amaryllis, and they take another 800, and it's like, okay, fine, and then you just brain control or snatch their shit if they don't kill you, because more than likely they're not going to.
Yeah,
the deck feels so free every time I play against it.
Yeah, I agree. And there's just not enough toys. And any decent player knows how to play around Lightsworn. Say no to keep track of names. Say no to play around Honest. It's not a hard matchup mentally going into. And a lot of other decks just sidelight and Prism Mirror, and that just takes care of it for you in a vacuum. Like it's just not. Yeah. In a Swiss bracket, I just feel like you're just fine. Like. We can move on. There's just not much there to discuss. I would even put it like there. Yeah.
Absolutely.
All right. Quickdraw.
Quickdraw. Top of favorable for sure. This is what's not putting it into the buy is the fact that Drill Warrior, sometimes you have a tough time dealing with it. Like obviously you have like Wing Blasts and stuff like that, but that's if you see it, right? And they don't hit into it. But like, it's a Hamster Raiko Caius deck. This deck does so well against Hamster Raiko Caius decks. Occasionally, Debris Dragon comes in and blows up the board with Black Rose Dragon, so like you gotta be careful with that. That's another cool toy that the deck has, but and it could definitely halt your aggression like a little bit, but not deal with your stuff effectively, if that makes sense, right? Like it just doesn't. It just doesn't like. Black Rose Dragon's your main enemy, so like just side decking like a My Body or a Starlight Road or like a DD Crow or like a way to like kind of stop some of those plays, or oh my god, and when you side in Burial going game 2 and game 3,
which we're always doing that, and
like,
that so
oh god.
The first time you ever I remember the first time I've ever gotten my own Drill Warrior burial back to the graveyard was against you. I was like, holy shit, that's an interaction I've never even thought of when I first started playing Edison. Honestly, that interaction alone, for me, I feel like this deck goes into the buy category. First of all, we play more Titanials than that deck, and if you have more Titanials, I'm just saying, like, but I first of all, the deck is just like, no one plays it. It's quintessential Edison, but it's a Hamster Raiko Caius deck. We, like you said, we do very well with Hamster Raiko Caius. We play more Titanials. I feel like you don't even need to put anything in your side deck for this deck. Like it's just people have been trying to like toy around with some other random things, and I just like to me, whenever I'm up against this deck, I'm like, it's free. It's a buy.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah.
Rescue Cat.
Rescue Cat.
All right.
The deck you almost played at Nats.
Oh my god, this deck feels so free though. It feels pretty free too. We could go put it in the buy category. It's just like it feels like with this deck, it's a Hamster Raiko Caius deck in some fashion, or a flip deck, or like with Gravekeepers Spies. But even their big power plays are being made into like Arcanite,
into Arcanite,
Sword Trigger, or Dark Arm Dragon. You know what all those cards have in common? They all
target. Yeah, that's right.
I mean, like they can net their way to Black Rose easily, just as I mean, I think Quickdraw does it better in terms of netting into Black Rose than this card does. Pot of Avarice is a very good card also in that deck, but like, and they could go Rescue Cat into Cataster, right? Like that's another thing they could do by getting Airbell and Raiko, and just synchroing into Cataster. But overall, it just like it feels like that there's so many like moving parts in it, and like the setup has to feel right for that deck. Because I played that deck for a little bit to know enough where I was just like, the setup needs to be correct, regardless, right? Or the opportunity needs to strike, and it's just like if you have early pressure, it just doesn't feel like that could really do anything. Because I played against that deck enough to know that like it can't really do anything. But like that's kind of like my general thoughts. Too much targeting, and you can just take advantage of that. Like Arcanite is amazing, but not amazing enough to stop Amaryllis. So, but that's just my thoughts. But what do you think?
No, same things. I think I would put it over Quickdraw just because they have access to that Catastrophe. It's a little easier. So, actually, that means it would be here. Actually, yeah, it was good where it was. All right, next.
Flamvell. Top of not favorable. So, not favorable.
Yeah, sorry.
So, reason being, Flamvell Fire Dog, pluses off your Amaryllis is going to the graveyard. It's kindling, and they set up like Fire Dog plus that Magician Tuner.
Yep.
You have like an easy level 8 right there, which is like
Colossal Fighter, which deals with your Titanium very well.
Thought Ruler deals with your targeting cards and gains all of your life back. Like you really need to be super careful. This is like one of the best, your best not favorable matchup for sure, but you know but at the same time it's one of those things that like you gotta watch out for Fire Dog, like a lot. So any way that you could like banish their little Flamvel pieces and make their rekindlings weak, I played against it at Nationals and I ended up 2-0ing the guy, but like I think that like it's one of those things where Fire Dog is just a very scary card every time I play against it. Like I'm fearful against a couple of things that happen within that deck between Rekindling and Fire Dog, but I wanted to hear like what do you think if you ever played against this deck with Amaryllis?
I definitely have. One of our close friends plays Fire Dog or Rekindling, whatever you want to call it, Flame Bells. The second you realize you're up against this deck, you need to play around Fire Dog like it's your job. You need to not let them get access. You can't just summon a Lila and leave it and leave it there. Like Lila Pop is just unless you have like a Wing Blast to back it up. But even in that situation, they're just gonna draw it again and drop it again. And it's like you have to be very careful, very cognizant about Fire Dog, because if they can establish like a Thought Ruler, Colossal. Right, their Colossals are going to deal with your Titanium. Your Thought Rulers are going to be hitting into your Amaryllises and gaining 2,200 life, and you can't Wing Blast it. Like if you're in that position, it's quite scary. So definitely agree in the not favorable category for those reasons.
Absolutely. That makes sense.
Let's save this to the end.
I mean, let's just put in the 50-50 category. Because,
you think so? Just throw it there?
Yeah, like the most logical.
I will say, I've been avoiding the Amaryllis mirror match like it's my job. I don't even want to play against it. Have you played against it?
I have Aaron in the side deck. Aaron in the side deck just like deals with it so hard. So.
Yeah, I have yet to do it because every time I see like I haven't played against you with it. I haven't like I'm avoiding it. I just don't want to do it. Maybe I should because it's gonna come eventually. But talk about it because I have no experience with the mirror match.
It's like, you know, obviously it's whatever you have, whoever's faster, whoever opens up quicker. I think that like, if they're playing the counter variant, like I think you just beat that matchup like pretty easily. Like you're so used to playing with them, it's just like you know how to play around them.
Right.
I think that like Fiend Comedian in the mirror is just so good. It's whoever sees it first, unfortunately. It is a little dice rolly, of course, because it's definitely I think the better play. I confidently, I will say this confidently, and I know there's a lot of Amaryllis like enthusiasts like myself, but I think I could like destroy the mirror. Like I think I know that the deck inside and out well enough to like crush anyone who is gonna put it together and try to play me against it. So that's just me though. But like it's just definitely like 50-50 by just the nature of the standard. You know what I mean?
Yeah. All right. So I'll put it even right in the middle of 50-50. Put it there for now.
That's right. Yeah. Very nice.
All right, moving on. Gadgets. Do we want to say this is like Ultimate Offering gadgets or Machina gadgets? Like
it does it. I think gadgets with the smashing grounds and the fission stuff like that. This is not favorable. I mean, this is the reason why it's not favorable is because of the fact that your Raikos don't trade well into any of their shit, like at all, right? Your Lilos barely trade well into any of those things, like at all. Titanium stops the targeting traps, but they don't stop the smashing grounds. So like it's you have to really be careful on this matchup, and the gadgets are just plus, you know, like that's all they do. I will say though, if you are playing like the tomato variants, you have like a little bit more of a better matchup because like like recruiters against gadgets are just like
it's so funny, dude.
Free.
I remember
oh
my first ever Edison tournament, right? When Edison became a thing, right? Now I'm not talking about back in the day. I'm talking about like modern Edison, right? My first ever Edison local. I show up, I'm playing the dragon deck, and I summon Mass Dragon in attack position. Right, 1400 attack, and he couldn't deal with it.
Yeah,
he just couldn't get over Mass Dragon. But that being said, everything you've said, like, yeah, the non-targeting single 1-for-1 removals, deal with your Titanial really well. I played against this last week, round 1, and I actually lost with Amaryllis because of that, and he had limiter removal game 1 and 3, and it's sometimes like if he could just non-targeting, like smash and ground your Titanial, have 2 gadgets on the board, summon a fortress, attack over your Amaryllis, limiter removal, damage step, attack for game. That's exactly what happened last week, and there was absolutely nothing I could have done. So definitely just because of like the smash and ground and the limiter removal, but yeah, so definitely not favorable.
Yeah. Definitely a good piece right there.
Oh, our favorite deck.
Gross. Gladiator Beast.
Oh,
All right, it's
no.
going to go first one in the category of borderline on winnable.
Yeah.
Right? I think this matchup is worse than the Blackwing matchup. Like, hands down. Oh my god. Every time I get paired up against it and they go lax sec 5, I'm like,
Oh boy.
Exodia. Like, what are you going to do? You
Yeah.
know, like, they open Exodia. You could get to Retiari so easily. You have to deal with Retiari, and that's not if they're playing a second Retiari, right? Because they usually are, right? War Chariot is insane, especially when they are starting to loop it again. I don't know what to say.
Their
man.
toys
It's
counter everything we do. It's everything we
everything.
do. It's just
everything. Even if you try to like Titanial negate the targeting stuff, it's just like. So what?
they have a work area
You
for
know?
that, right? If they could just work.
Yeah. You lose your Titanial anyway. Yeah,
Mhm.
it's yeah. You can't beat this deck. I mean, like I think that like people are cute when they try to side in like the best Tiari with the Gizaris and the extra deck, and like I love that shit. Like that's so cute. And I've definitely dropped the Gizaris on a couple of Glide players' faces before, and their faces just like
They're like, wait, what?
dropped to the floor. Like they're like, why is Gizaris coming down? I'm like, cause you let me. Guy. But like,
guy.
it's like there's some cool ways to combat the matchup, but even post side, I still don't feel like we're even at 50-50 or not even a favorite. It's just like
It's
it's glass cannon the deck. Like they open the nutty hand or they don't, you know. And every time they set 5, you shit your pants, and you just gotta. Sometimes you gotta play as if you hope to God they have like just 3 Starlight Roads face down and everything is fake. And sometimes it is the case where everything is fake. You know what I mean? So, I just think this is not fair. This is just borderline unwinnable for sure. But I want to hear what you have to say.
No,
about
that's pretty much it. The only thing I'll say is like Gizaris targets 2 cards on your field, and you have Titanial, but they always have a ward share for that. Like if you establish like Titanial and like a Wing Blast or something, I'm trying to even think of a scenario, but they're gonna if you Lone Fire they Wing Blast. You're just dead. Like then they're gonna tag into Retiari, banish, and it's everything they do is just counters everything you do. There's nothing fun about this matchup when it comes to what we're playing.
Right.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
I guess like the best thing you could do is like summon a Lila, keep it in attack position, and hope they don't have Required to deal with it. Right. That's like the best thing you can do. Hope to God it does, like go. Hope to God you win the die roll. Summon a Lila, pray, or even the summon like Titanial turn 1. Pray they just can't get over it. Right? That's all you can do.
That's great.
Yeah. Okay. All right. X Sabers.
Sabers favorable for sure.
Yeah.
They're slow. They don't do anything. I mean, they do something, but like they are. They're very slow. Even when they got him loop you. I remember I was playing as a Saber player online. He was like, "You feeling cute with the Gothams loop," and he just discarded like all my points and Amaryllis out of my head, and he literally got rid of his entire field doing it. So it's like
that's why I think it's the top of favorable.
Obviously, the deck is one set away from being fucking amazing, right? Because they got Dark Soul and Boggart Knight and stuff like that. It's just like as long as you like keep them all full troll, which is like not hard to do like at all, and don't like run into the recruiters willy-nilly. You should have like a very easy. The deck feels really weird in this format as is, but like and very incomplete. But like the deck is so winnable. Like the format, the matchup is so winnable. Like there's so many ways to deal with it. Aaron in the side deck is very good. This is why I think between that and like zombies is the reason why I side deck Aaron of just being like a charge of the light brigade target that gets you a monster that just like does that he-ya kick right back into the deck. You know? But
he-ya kick.
But, like,
that's exactly what Aaron's
saying.
saying. Nope, there's nothing more to say. The decks, and I think this is what we're going to talk about next. And we can even talk about it now, but like the decks that like put your hand into the graveyard, and like that's how they get you. They're trying to get you with that. It's favorable for you. Like you want your plants in the graveyard so that your Amaryllis can do the thing. Like if they discard your Amaryllis, they discard even a Lone Fire Blossom for you. Like you're fueling your own engine, and it's like they just like they are fueling your engine by putting some cards into the graveyard for you.
Right.
So,
Agreed.
which is why I think Sky Scourge, Noralis shenanigans can also go into favorable.
Yeah, you can put it right favorable.
Yeah, put it right up there next to.
I mean, yeah, like with Noralis, it's like it's another casino deck, right? That like has to draw well, and even if they do draw well and ditch your whole hand, you still have like a massive shot of still winning that game because.
Oh yeah.
I mean, I've had those hands where I remember I played against this Noralis person, and my hand was like double Titanium and Amaryllis.
Yep.
And, like,
Thank you.
Dandelion, and I'm like, fuck, this
Thank
sucks.
you.
And then he goes, special summon Dark Refer by discarding Noralis, and I'm like, yes, do it.
Yeah.
And then he summoned Phantom of Chaos, and I just dropped my whole hand, and I'm like,
thank you. Yeah, you win. Yeah, you Exodia'd them. You counter Exodia'd.
So good.
Yeah.
So good.
Yeah. All right. I think there's nothing left to say. I think like at the deck's best, it fuels your own engine. I guess like the worst case scenario is like you open like a bunch of spells and Wing Blast and stuff, and they hit you that way. But then in that case, the chances of you drawing into like a monster, into a Lone Fire, or like you're now in the top deck game, I feel like are very high. Like I guess worst case scenario is like they hit a bunch of spells into your graveyard with Noralis. You like draw into like a Titanial, and then you start drawing all the cards that they wanted to discard. But even in that case, like next game, that's not. I feel like in a 2 of 3, you're gonna come out on top for sure.
Yeah, I agree.
All right, Machina Lightsworns.
Favorite, just Machinas in general, or Machina variants in general. Okay, so I will say this: you can put it in favorable, but like I think that like the one thing that this side decks a lot is Zombie World, and it's to counter Cyber Dragon, right? When they side Cyber Dragon, whether it's like our teammate, he sided against me the other day with Zombie World, and I was just like, holy smokes, and I didn't do squat diddly that game, right? So like. With this, it's like obviously Titanial trades really well into
Fortress,
like extremely well into Fortress, right?
Yeah.
So like I think the Hamster Kai's Raiko variants are like are good matchups as is, right? But it's like those it's toys in the post side deck is really what makes it shine. They can side Iron Walls, they can side Zombie Worlds, they could be playing Cajolatrons, which runs over your Titanials, right? But the crux of the decks, or every version I've played, has some sort of targeting within it, and if you just like manage your resources correctly and push accordingly, you could definitely come off on top of it. I would put it just above the Christia.
That's what I was thinking.
I would say overall, it's generally a very favorable deck because like that deck struggles to push through like Amaryllises, and they struggle to push through Dandy tokens, like more so than like any of the other decks here. Like the deck just like they have to commit their hand to the field to like deal with any part of your defense, and that's when you use the Snatch Deal cards to just take their stuff and just start swinging with them. So it's like that's where I feel on the lines of that. It's just like it feels the game plays out the same way almost every single time. But like,
yes.
What do you think, Sam? You play against this matchup enough?
I play against this matchup a lot. Our teammate, my friend, we this is his deck. I've nicknamed it in our friend group Twin Dot Deck, because he's a twin and we call him Twin, and he plays this deck. So I play test against a lot. The games I lose against this deck are the games where you have a slow start and they have the nuts. And the nuts being like summon Gear Frame, search Force, right? Whenever this deck summons Gear Frame, searches Force, you should be scared, because that means they already have a Fortress and a way to discard it, and then they can reborn like another one. The games where it gets going fast, which happens a lot because they're it's a very consistent deck. It does the same thing every time. There are definitely games where you can have a slow start, and it could just push you out of the game before anything. Game 1, I definitely have a little bit more trouble with it than post board, because I think Cyber Dragon obviously deals with this deck very well. And you can side in your bottomlesses, deals with Fortress very well. And I think post board, this matchup definitely becomes a lot easier, like you were saying. Definitely a favorable matchup because of that. But there are definitely games that they can just snipe just by being faster and more consistent than you.
Yeah.
So yeah, those are my thoughts.
That makes sense. Makes a ton of sense.
All right. Gravekeepers.
We can actually put this into the bottom of not favorable. Right?
Okay.
Or like, no, top of not favorable.
Top of, yeah.
Middle of not favorable. Middle of not favorable. And here's why. Like, the deck itself only beats you when Necro Valley's on the field.
Mm-hmm.
Outside of that, there are a bunch of 1,500 attackers that don't really do much. So, like, if you keep them off Necro Valley, you have a shot of winning. It's not like Gladiator Beast, where there's multiple access for it to, like, you would think that obviously you would put this in borderline unwinnable, but like the fact of the matter is that like Gravekeepers do not have Recruiter in Edison formats, and that's the only argument I ever need for it. Is that can't like do anything without Gravekeeper Recruiter. Like, it gets the whole deck going, and more. It doesn't have like Royal Tribute is like against the deck, because like you wanted to get rid of half those monsters anyway.
Same rationale with these two decks, but yes, continue.
Right, but the way that you could deal with Floodgates against that deck is just like so easy. So like I can't, but like Necro Valley's a house of a card. Like there's nothing else I could say about it. So that's all I got to say about that, but that deck doesn't come up often. So like who cares? You know what I mean?
Who cares? No, yeah, I mean you might run into this at a locals because someone thinks they're funny and haha they just want to go for the Royal Tribute sack. But
yeah,
you know. I get Royal Tribute does do exactly what these two decks did, is hit your hand for you. But like you said, Necro Valley's just, it says no.
Beast, yeah.
No. All right, moving on, because we are currently at an hour. So let's try to push through these.
All right. Bish, we can put it in the buy category. This deck doesn't do anything.
It doesn't do anything.
It's a 4-card combo deck. It's a frog deck. It's you beat frogs, and you beat frog decks that do 4-card combos.
Yeah.
So,
back in the day, I used to play against this deck a lot. I don't think I've ever played against this deck in all my playtesting since I started playing Edison format. Like,
yeah, this is good in the like very beginning of like people trying to pick up the format again, and they realize they need 4 cards to like do anything. So, and it's not like it's not like you have Formula Synchron in this format or anything like that. It's like, it's pretty pathetic where the deck kind of lies in the format.
All right, moving on.
Macro
D-Fissure.
The Nikki Chow special. Let's put this in borderline unwinnable.
Yeah.
This is borderline unwinnable for sure. Yeah, I mean, the only times when you win is when they can't do anything, right? Like, and when I say the Nikki Chow special, it's like, it could just be him, honestly, that plays this deck. I don't see anyone else play this deck, but he has like Yados in there, he has Macros in there, he has like Dark Bribes in there, and sometimes you just win because he draws the wrong half of his deck. That's it.
And that. Like, no, keep going. Go ahead. I know. In the what event? Was it the Starlight Shadows event that we played?
Shadows, yeah.
I played against this deck, and he just, in 2 games, I 2-0'd him, did not see D-Fissure or Macrocosmos. He just didn't see it. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
And he was just, I had MST, game 2, I even had MST. I was sitting on it, literally waiting for that card. But even then, I would still put in borderline unwinnable, because if they draw the right half of the deck and you have MST or something, they'll go macro, like D-Fissure, you go chain MST, they have macro. And it's just, sometimes they'll see the right half of the deck. And more often than not, they will, because that's what the deck is meant to do. So, and it just says no to everything, your entire game plan.
Right, that's right. Agreed.
I guess the only thing you could say is, like, you can, like, summon Lonefire Tribute, because, you know, it doesn't say you have to send it to graveyard, and then DDR back, and then do it again, but then it's just, like, you can get you can play the game, right? It's just...
Right.
The the whole Amaryllis part of it is completely turned off. You could still establish a Titanial, and, you could still play. You could definitely still play.
Yeah.
But even then, it's like, sheesh. Maybe I'll put it at the top over Glads. Like, it's closer to unfavorable because you can still play the game.
Right.
All right.
With Glads, you just can't.
Moving along. 6 Sams.
it's the buy. You can give that deck 10 gateways if you want. It just doesn't. It doesn't do anything this round.
If Fabio's watching this, he's gonna be quite angry.
Yeah.
It's his favorite deck. We love
love
Fabio.
Fabio.
Shout out to Fabio.
Shout out to Fabio. Yeah.
Right.
I don't know what to say about this one. It's like the monsters don't do anything. Their powers within Grandmaster, it doesn't. They only can't synchro with them. I don't know.
It is a Royal Oppression deck though. So
it is a Royal Oppression deck, but Bayou is a better Royal Oppression deck.
Bayou is a
like,
better.
that's,
Yeah.
So it's one of those. It's one of those royal. It's and I guess like going off on a tangent a little bit here. It's like when Blackwings flip Royal Oppression, you just know you're not going to die. You know, like it's like the same in that regard, where you know you're not going to die either. If they flip Royal Oppression, you can still like oppression their Grandmaster when it comes down, and because it needs to be destroyed by an opponent's card effect, they don't get the card back. So,
very important interaction.
Very important interaction. You got to read Grandmaster, but beautiful secret row too. But outside of that, the deck doesn't. No, sorry.
Fair. Sorry, Fabio. All right, another Fabio special. Chainburn.
Chainburn. You could put this towards the super top of favorable, like for sure. It's gonna snag a game off you if you just don't know what you're doing. Like game one, you really gotta watch severely against Dimension Wall, because Dimension Wall is gonna be the thing that like if you get Dimension Walled on like a Titanial or Cluster Amaryllis, you could be in big trouble pretty hard. But post side, it's like you start sniping random back rows with Dust Tornadoes during their end phase, and you just break their chains, and it's
Side and Decree.
Siding and Decree too, big part.
Yeah.
The Decree Titanial just FTKs that deck. That's right.
All right. Moving on.
Oh, the Twilight Rose. Oh, we did a video on this.
Wow,
yes.
I've never played this matchup.
This is like super towards the top of favorable for sure.
Okay.
Because that deck's strength is searching Snatch Steal, and you do not care about Snatch Steal, especially if you're playing like bot lines and Titanials. Well, I remember watching some videos saying that it's the best plant deck, and I just laughed every single time I heard someone say that. Amaryllis is the best plant deck, objectively speaking.
Best deck.
Subscribe if you believe so as well, if you know the truth. But with this, it's like it's very one-trick pony. They brick on the Eclipse spells anyway. It's not. No.
Yeah.
It's not like it's easy.
Never thought this deck did anything particularly special, but.
Right.
Moving on. What is this?
Let's just put it Blackwings again. Just put it right next to Shura. I don't know why it's Blackwings again. And then we can move over to the Blue Eyes, which is Dragon Turbo.
Dragon Turbo. Cool.
Dragon Turbo. Put that in favorable, because I mean, even though Dragon Turbo is like the deck runs hot, right? Like we all seen this deck win more events than Amaryllis has won events, which is fine. That's just the nature of the beast. Like the deck could draw absurd. Super Rejuve is an absolutely absurd card.
Wow,
also.
What a card.
But what beats the deck is the counter comedian package, right? You just middle finger that deck real hard, right? But you just blow them out pretty hard with that, right? Like that's what the counter comedian package is ideally for, is decks like that. It's very one trick pony. It does the same thing every single time, so at least it's predictable. But and the good thing with it is that if you're able to survive the initial big push, like you load up your equip spells with Mark of the Rose and Break Patrols, and you start taking all their other things, and then you just break their board, and once you break their board, the game's over. So that's my feelings towards the deck. It's a very scary deck to play against, but like it's super manageable to beat, even if they're drawing on their best. But I want to see what you think, Sam.
Yeah, it's a very single-minded focused deck, right? The deck has its own game plan to play, and as long as you know that, yes, you could sit there and be very scared for your life. And you know, every time I'm up against this deck in a bracket or in Swiss, I'm scared, because sometimes it's just like there is nothing you can do. But there are very often times they break. There's very often times they need to take 2 turns to kill you, and if you can recognize that, and like sometimes they'll like go red MD, Blue Eyes, or whatever, and if you could like you know, you could. Something you said earlier in the video is knowing how you can like 2-for-1 with Mark of the Rose. That's a perfect example. It's like you could take one of their red MDs and crash and break their board that way using Wing Blast and stop their complete OTK push. You're pretty good. Now the deck also, like, their game plan is to like kind of power into Trunade and then Trunade you and push for game. Trunade doesn't really scare us that much. We don't play that much back row. Like, it might hit a Wing Blast, but I feel like you can Wing Blast something on their board beforehand. Like,
it's, and if you get Necro Garden in the graveyard early enough too, it just like helps so much. Also, like they can't push through. They rarely can push through Necro Garden, and even if they Lightning Vortex or stuff and stuff like that. So.
And in a bracket, like if this deck is, you know, pushing through the top, it's scary, but there's some elements of luck, and they can definitely break. So.
Absolutely, I agree with that.
All right, so this is the Krebin's
Zombie Well of Dad. You know,
Well of Dad.
Like Well of Dad kind of deal. That's favorable for sure. The amount of times that like they just summon Krebons and pass is remarkable. That happens a lot. That's like a play that's like very common, and then you just go
Mark of the Rose. Give me that. Give me that.
And then you convert off it so beautifully. It's not a one-trick pony deck either. The deck is actually like very solid. It just doesn't like. It needs setup. Like, and its setup cards are not like resilient on their own. It's not like, you know, Raikos or anything like that where they're not like that. But for the Well-Dad stuff, it's just like, yeah, you know, Krebons could just sit there and just keep pinging, taking 800 every single time, which is kind of like what you wanted to do anyway. But overall, I think it's an overall very favorable matchup because there's targeting spells and targeting cards out the wazoo there for sure.
Yeah, that's pretty much it. It's just, I put it next to zombies because they're generally trying to accomplish the same thing, and not that their gameplay is exactly the same, but in general, it's just these two decks. I pair them together in terms of matchups. All right, the evil guy, the rock, whatever.
50-50 for sure. I mean, like the fact that Dark Guy could just turn everything to attack. The moment that like it attacks means you could push right through Danny tokens. The reason why it's 50-50 is because when they do not kill you, and you just Mark of the Rose their biggest dude, and you just swing back right at it with them. So, and obviously their pieces for their game plan like don't work together. Like the Fiend stuff and the Rock stuff don't like work together as like well as like everyone thinks that does. It just, in my opinion, it just doesn't. Right? So, because you have that natural clunkiness with the deck, you could definitely get lucky, but like you definitely want to like. Oh man, Magic Cellar during a Dark Guy is
it's fun. This is fun.
So awesome.
Fun thing to do. All right.
Yes, no general thoughts on that one.
So, last deck we got is the Kuras.
AFC.
Yeah.
This is favorable for sure. The whole deck targets, you could just negate Kuras off Titanial. You could, the reason why it's not a buy is because the Gajelatrons in the deck have a higher ceiling than your Titanials. That's the only thing against it, but outside of that, the entire deck targets. That's all I gotta say. I mean, it's Snowman Eater targets, the Wing Blast targets, the Kuras targets, like all that stuff kind of targets. So that's kind of like, you know, where I'm at for the most part with that deck. But it's okay, you know, like it needs a target to get its game plan going. That's for sure. Yeah. But outside of that, and if it's not able to do those crucial pieces or those crucial plays, like the deck is kind of like sitting on standby for a little bit. It is a Debris Dragon deck, so like they could definitely Black Rose you into oblivion. But you know, that's kind of like where I'm sitting at with that one. If that makes sense. Yeah,
I think for this deck, it's just like you need to know how to make Gear Time mistiming, and there's a lot of ways that you can make Gear Time mistiming. Siding in Dust Tornado, like, you know, and setting a spell to make Gear Time mistiming, like activating something, and then MST their Gear Town Chain Link 2 or higher is. Just knowing that puts it favorable, and then in addition to the fact that Kuras itself targets, so if they're gonna go like Kuras, summon, and then try to pop 2 in order to get their draws, you're just, if you have Titanium, it's just they can't do that, and that's their game plan. So yeah,
that's right.
That is right.
Perfect, and that Sam is the entire matchup spread. Obviously, you see here that the deck pretty much has unfavorable matchups against things that are not relevant in the metagame, with the exception of Blackwings, which is great to see.
Right.
Because outside of that, and this is why I kind of call it the best deck, even though like I joke around a lot, I'm sort of half serious at the same time. Like you see a lot of those top decks within the first two favorable and like buys, where a lot of decks do struggle against this, and it performs very well against all of those. And the top half is what you're going to see most of. Like the bottom half, like not so much. But yeah, man, like this is kind of where it is. But we want to hear your thoughts if you've made it through the video. So please like, comment, and subscribe. Please tell us what you think is wrong or what you think is right, and we'll see you all later.
But before we sign out, just I love seeing like comments and like interaction. Like if you, I would love to see people say, oh no, I think this matchup I played Amaryllis and I feel like I played against Amaryllis. Comment below. It really helps us out. It helps the video visibility. And comment below what you think, and you know, talk about it. Keep talking about Amaryllis. But also don't forget, at 250 subscribers, we will be giving away these 2 copies of Phoenixian Cluster Amaryllis, or in French, Amaryllis Phoenix. And 2 lucky winners will be getting these Amaryllises. So keep on the subscriptions, keep growing the channel. And now I think we can say goodbye, little man.
All right, bye, little man. Have a good day.
Have a good one.